To order. And Secretary Elner, please call the roll.
Commissioner Alchek, Vice Chair Keller, Commissioner King, Commissioner Martinez, Chair Michael, Commissioner Pinelli,
Present.
Commissioner Tanaka, 5 present, and both Vice Chair Keller and Commissioner King said they would not be available tonight.
Okay, so for this evening, Commissioner Tanaka will serve as Vice Chair of the Commission. So welcome everybody to the Wednesday, November 20th, 2013 special meeting of the Planning and Transportation Commission. The first item on the agenda is oral communications, which is the time when members of the public may speak to any item not on the agenda. Do we have any speaker cards for oral communications? So seeing none, let's move directly to the first item on the agenda, which is the California Avenue Streetscape Project Update. And we'll have a report from staff.
Good evening, Chair, members of the Commission. Before I start, I just want to start actually with an apology. We had originally intended to forward the Planning Commission an informational memorandum providing the community an update on the status of the California Avenue Streetscape project. The same staff report was intended to be presented to the City Council this past Monday, and we were planning to forward you a copy as a courtesy copy for your packet. That item was delayed until December 16th, and the agenda wasn't updated before that delay occurred, and so we didn't have, unfortunately, a staff report to provide to you in your agenda packet. And if you're wondering why, that's actually the reason. When the informational memo goes back to the City Council, we'll be sure to include a copy of that informational memo within your packet as well for your preceding Planning Commission meeting. The intention, though, of the update was to let you and the community know what is the status of the California Avenue Streetscape project. We had originally intended for that project to go into construction actually in the beginning of the fall. And we were deferred for several different reasons, specifically the addition of a waterline reconstruction element into the project. It was a last-minute infrastructure element that was identified during the final elements of the design phase, and so that element got added into the project, but it in turn then delayed the construction of the project for several months. So the project is, the design plans are now complete with the addition of the waterline element. The city is planning on releasing the project for bid to the contractor community during the first week of December. We anticipate typically a Tuesday release, which in this case would be December 3rd. And once that bid set is available, we'll forward that through Robin to the commission for you. So if you're interested in seeing those final plans, you can see them. And the bids will be available for a period of 1 month. It's usually a week longer than we would typically do for bid set, just to accommodate the holiday season. And at which point we'd open bids and plan to award a contract to a contractor by the end of January to begin construction in February. We have been in contact with the California Avenue business merchants and community business leaders, and so they are aware of the schedule. And so we'll have more information, again, at the informational memorandum that gets released to the City Council on December 16th. And with that, that's the end of my report, but if you have any specific questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
So thank you for the report. Are there any questions from the Commission for Mr. Rodriguez? Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you. Coincidentally, I was on Monday in Los Altos, and I was looking at their streetscape update. It's in place, completed. And I know that your designer is the same designer that did the Los Altos project. I was kind of disappointed with the way it's wearing, the quality. It's really dirty, and where they were outdoor dining, it was stained. It looked really tattered, and I wonder if you've had a chance to revisit that place, and because I know it was one of the kinds of materials we're looking at using, and it might, before it goes out to bid, you might want to have an addendum in terms of what it is. I know Los Alto is a fairly well-off community, so I don't think it's a matter of them not having the resources to clean their sidewalks. They just don't look very well kept. So I think it might be a matter of the materials and sort of the way they're finished and like that. So I would suggest that if you have a chance or your staff has a chance to look at that and see whether there might be some tweaks we might want to make to our plan. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and we'll definitely look at that. I think I have a meeting with Aaron tomorrow, but I have a reason to skip it now and go have breakfast in Los Altos to go do a field visit.
Are there any other questions or comments? Commissioner Tanaka.
Thank you for moving this forward. My question is, what has the feedback you've gone so far on the construction schedule in terms of the staging and all of the logistics, just the reaction that you got from the merchants so far?
Thank you. We have been working very closely with the California Avenue Merchant Association. I think they've changed names several times. I don't remember the name of the acronym. But, the provisions that we had negotiated as part of the project with the business community are all within the specifications. Some of the key measures that we designed into the plan with that input was that we never allow 2 consecutive blocks of construction, but never more than 2 blocks at a time also. So as an example, we would do maybe the half side of one block and then skip a block and then do the half side of the preceding block. And that was to specifically minimize the parking impacts, loss of parking for construction during the life of the project. At this point, we're anticipating up to a 10-month construction schedule. Part of that is an increase just because of the water line. The water line alone will add probably a 4 to 6 week add to the schedule. But those are the kinds of provisions that we're making. Another thing that we'll be doing for the merchants is we're looking at adding tentative parking. So as an example, we're looking at Birch Street, and we've already kind of received some preliminary support from the merchants to do temporary re-signing to allow Birch Street to serve as overflow parking throughout the construction during the lanes of traffic, similar to what you see in San Francisco and Oakland along busy arterials, where you don't park on the street, so it serves as a travel lane, but you can park at certain periods. That's something that we're looking at, and that's going to add close to 40 spaces back into the community, which would offset almost any parking loss during the stage of construction.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So now let's move to the public hearing, and the topic is the California Avenue Concept Area Plan. Before we start this,
Chair, I think there was a speaker to the previous item.
Was there a speaker? Okay. So going back then to the informational item on the California Avenue Streetscape, we have a speaker for 3 minutes.
Can Fred Balin please come forward? Thank you.
This is dedicated to Alan Weller, whose picture is on the screen. Alan Weller loved the small-town neighborhood character of California Avenue, where he maintained his family law practice for decades. He was well-known and liked, and religiously patronized its independent businesses. Heaven helped me when I suggested coffee outside the avenue and at a chain. When Alan learned of the planned replacement of the mature holly oaks, it did not upset him because he assumed it was decided through a reasonable process of which he was ignorant. And when he got word in the hours before the clear cut, he called it wrong and stupid and predicted a firestorm. Unfortunately, he expressed it only to the area's development association and the city arborist. In the aftermath, Alan was dedicated to completely understanding the circumstances behind this tragedy and to help implement a tree replanting plan that would be true to the avenue's heritage. In that regard, he and others were assisted by the incomparable but relatively unknown arborist Dave Muffley. When that plan came to the Planning Commission in the fall of 2009, with its oaks, lindens, and accents, someone inquired about a theme, which prompted a formative response from Alan. Quote, although a business district, California Avenue is far more integrated visually and socially with its nearby neighborhoods than other downtowns, he wrote. It evolved in symbiosis with the adjacent tree-lined neighborhoods, with no abrupt visual transition, and with its mature oaks, a reassuring reminder of this relationship. The theme is neighborhood. The follow-up streetscape process has been lengthy, cumulative, productive, and bodes well. Unfortunately, 6 trees will fall, but 50 will be added via initial selection of the outside design team. Will they fit the theme? In the summer, Dave Muffley kindly used a vacation day to come look at the selections and placements with Alan and I. Dave, hired by Steve Jobs, is the lead arborist for the new Apple campus. 6,000 new trees and the dispensation of 4,000 existing. Dave went on at length, Alan interspersed with questions and comments. I took notes. The summary was submitted to the city for consideration. Now it's on to the implementation. Alan will not see the end result. He passed away suddenly and unexpectedly last month. But to the extent that the completed streetscape is true to his vision, his spirit will continue to thrive on the avenue. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments, and we share in the hopes for the beauty and the completion of this project. Just a moment. Okay, our next item will be a public hearing on the California Avenue Concept Area Plan. Before we begin this, it apparently came about that there's a conflict between our meeting tonight on the California Avenue plan and a meeting that's being held by Jay Paul, who is going to have 2 meetings regarding the proposed project at 395 Page Mill. And many of the residents and leaders from the affected communities were interested in attending both our discussion of the California Avenue Concept Area Plan and also the Jay Paul community meeting. There's going to be a second Jay Paul community meeting, and presumably the people who are here tonight and couldn't attend the Jay Paul meeting tonight will be able to attend the Jay Paul meeting in early December. And the people who wanted to be here tonight but are attending the Jay Paul meeting will have an opportunity at our subsequent meeting to interact with the Commission on any comments or questions they may have about the California Avenue Concept Area Plan. So it's our intention to engage fully with the community and give a full opportunity for everybody to express their views and answer any relevant questions. And when it comes back to us, it's of great interest to us to have a discussion of how the Jay Paul project relates to the concept area plan. So please, anybody who's watching on TV or is otherwise interested, you will have an opportunity. So with that, let's turn to staff for a report on the draft plan.
Thank you, Chair and members of the Commission. We are requesting tonight the Commission's recommendation to the Council to incorporate the draft California Avenue Fry's Area Concept Plan into the draft comp plan. We have here tonight Andrew Hill, representing the City's Comprehensive Plan Consultant, DC&E, the Planning Center. Joanna Jansen, who has presented to the Commission in the past, is not available tonight. However, Andrew has been the primary project manager in the project and will make a detailed presentation following staff's report. As the Chair alluded to, staff has heard interest and received requests to continue this item to a future hearing because of the 395 Page Mill community meeting and because of upcoming council study sessions on land use and transportation policies. As one option, staff recommends that the Commission have the City's consultant present the plan and open the public hearing for those members of the Commission, or those members of the public who wish to speak, and to continue the discussion portion of the concept plan to a future Commission following the Council's meeting and at a date that would not conflict with another community meeting. The document before you tonight is a direct outcome of multiple community meetings and stakeholder meetings, as well as commission and council meetings. It was drafted to reflect public and commission comments from those meetings. This document presents for the first time the range of goals, policies, and programs proposed to be incorporated into the comp plan. This area is one of two areas, along with East Meadow Circle, that Council has directed staff to analyze if those areas need land use policy changes. As previously stated, the study focuses on 3 sub-areas within the study area: California Avenue, Park Boulevard, and the Fry's area. The Commission will note that, as shown on page 8 of the plan, attachment A, that only about 20% of the land use designations have been proposed for change, which is basically amending the designation for the Fry's property from multifamily to mixed use. This reflects consistent public feedback we've received throughout the process. There is also a program incorporated that requires master planning of the Fry's area to make sure that it is compatible development with the area. As discussed in the area-wide themes, feedback provided during community workshops is that the general consensus is to protect the existing character of the residential area as well as the commercial areas. As stated in the first goal, the purpose is to provide a framework for managing change in identified sub-areas while preserving the existing character of surrounding residential neighborhoods and the commercial districts. Page 4 of the study introduces the purpose of the concept plan and states that the purpose is to lay out a unifying vision that weaves together the city's recent planning initiatives in order to guide future development and redevelopment. Staff would like to clarify that the intent of that language is to state that the goal is not to provide specifically one vision, but a framework to allow coordinated implementation of the various studies, policies, and initiatives described in the list above that goal, such as a rail corridor study and the El Camino Real design guidelines, as well as the vision statements that have been identified for each of the sub-areas as reflected in the first goal. The other items staff would like to bring to the Commission's attention would be that, in addition to recognizing the protection of the quality of life in the residential neighborhood and the scale of the commercial areas, the study also recognizes the importance of parking for this area. The study acknowledges that it is an issue and identifies opportunities to improve the area in terms of parking. It discusses the ongoing efforts by the city to improve conditions such as exploration of residential parking permits, enhancing transportation demand management programs, and specifically a program to implement a design competition to solicit innovative ideas on how to make better use of the city's existing parking lots and structures. Staff would also like to bring attention the expansion of the boundaries as previously discussed. The boundaries of the CALIB concept plan have been extended to include El Camino Real to reflect the fact that those properties in El Camino Real have been considered as part of the overall analysis. But what it shows is that the consistent feedback has been that no changes have been seen as necessary for those areas, so the sub-areas remain the same. With this, staff will return the presentation to Andrew to provide greater details on the document.
Hello. As Elena said, my name is Andrew Hill, and I'm with Planning Center DC&E. I've been working with Elena and Stephen for the past 2 years to develop this concept plan. Thank you for the opportunity to present the contents to you. I have a quick presentation tonight to walk you through the contents of the plan and also the process by which it was developed, and hopefully lead up to an opportunity for the public to comment and perhaps for PTC to discuss as well. In terms of, let me start with the study area and its context. As you all know, the concept plan area is centrally located in the urbanized portion of Palo Alto, with the California Avenue Caltrain station anchoring the concept plan area in the northeast. El Camino Real also passes along the southern perimeter, and so the concept plan area is very well served by transit, not only VTA buses, but also Caltrain and private employee shuttles. Additionally, VTA is planning bus rapid transit on El Camino. The concept plan area is home to numerous important Palo Alto landmarks and popular destinations. Also, particularly along Park Boulevard, there are some larger vacant or underutilized parcels that are available for redevelopment, and that's been attracting a lot of interest from private developers. One important thing to note is that there is this single-family residential enclave centered on Olive and Pepper Avenues. Additionally, there's multifamily residential development on Sheridan and Page Mill. And then surrounding the concept plan area is single-family neighborhoods. And this is really brought out when you look at the comp plan land use designations in the concept plan area and surrounding. You can see that the single-family residential enclave inside the plan area and surrounding. I've included some slides here, which I'm going to pass over, which describe the existing comp plan land use designations that apply in the concept plan area. I included them so that we can refer back to them in the course of discussion if necessary. Another important piece of context to note is that the city's PTOD overlay, the pedestrian transit-oriented development overlay, takes up much of the concept plan area. This is defined in the zoning code, and it's intended to foster higher density residential dwellings within a walkable distance of the Caltrain station. And one last important piece of context, I think, is that the concept plan area itself has been the subject of numerous planning initiatives, and some of these are still ongoing. The development of the PTOD combining district regulations, which seek to promote higher density residential development that's compatible with the surrounding neighborhoods, and also activate the street front. The bicycle and pedestrian transportation plan, which has designated Park Boulevard as a bike boulevard. The California Avenue streetscape improvement projects, which we just heard an update about. The ongoing El Camino design guidelines update, and others listed here, including the rail corridor study and a region-wide Grand Boulevard initiative. Quickly, with a recap of the concept plan process, early on through engaging with the community, we identified a number of issues to address, and these include developing a vision for sustaining and improving the California Avenue Business and Retail District, Park Boulevard, and the Fry's site. Also, managing change in areas within the concept plan that can accommodate it, while also balancing that with the need to preserve and enhance the quality of life in the existing residential neighborhoods. Parking, as Elena mentioned, is a key issue to be addressed in the plan. Bicycle and pedestrian connectivity as well, and open space and park amenities. Also, as Elena mentioned, the plan has been developed with extensive community involvement, including stakeholder meetings with business owners and property owners in the plan area, 3 community-wide workshops, and public discussions with City Council and PTC. All of that input has helped shape the plan that you have before you. For example, early on in 2010, something important that came out of the community meetings was the identification of 3 sub-areas within the concept plan area that could accommodate a certain level of change, and those are the California Avenue sub-area along the northern portion, encompassing not only California Avenue but also Cambridge Avenue, with El Camino Real on one end and the Caltrain station at the other. The second sub-area is the Park Boulevard sub-area, extending down Park Boulevard and including also the 395 Page Mill site. And then the third sub-area comprised largely of the Fry's site, where Fry's Electronics is located now. Outside of these 3 sub-areas, we heard very clearly from the community that there was a strong desire to preserve existing residential neighborhoods and enhance the quality of life there. So there's definitely a need to balance and manage change in areas where it can be accommodated with this strong desire from the community to preserve the quality of life in their neighborhoods. On the basis of all this community input, we developed vision statements and key concepts which would support the realization of those visions for each of the sub-areas. We then refined the vision and the concepts in discussions with City Council and with PTC. And ultimately, the vision statements became the goals of the draft plan, and the key concepts were translated into the policies and programs that are in the draft plan. Let me touch now on the organization of the plan. The concept plan is really designed as a tool which will help the public and decision makers frame the context for planning in this sector of the city. It contains goals, policies, and programs that apply area-wide, and then goals, policies, and programs that apply specifically to the three sub-areas. Also, the concept plan summarizes recent and ongoing planning initiatives and includes policies and programs that respond to those initiatives. This diagram shows the land use concept for the CalAV area. Generally, as you can see, it maintains the existing comp plan land use designations with two important changes. The first one is that the Fry site, which is currently designated service commercial, would be changed to mixed use in order to allow more flexibility in planning and better integration with the surrounding neighborhood in the event that Fry's elects to relocate in the future. And the second important change is the creation of a new tech corridor overlay along the, I guess, northern or eastern side of Park Boulevard in recognition of the nascent tech startups and R&D oriented uses that are there already. Now I'd like to walk through a quick summary of the goals, policies, and programs in the plan for you, starting first of all with area-wide themes. The goal here is really about striking this balance between managing change in the areas of the concept plan that can accommodate it, while also preserving the existing character and the quality of life in the surrounding area. And for the area-wide themes, we have proposed 8 policies and 4 supporting programs. Really, the focus of these is on preserving the neighborhoods and enhancing the quality of life in those existing areas. The policies also stress particularly they call out the Olive Pepper Enclave, and then overall they really do focus on roadway safety for all users throughout the plan area. Finally, area-wide, in general, the study area is called out as an appropriate location for a public safety building, although there isn't a particular site or parcel which is identified as an ideal location for that. The second goal pertains to the California Avenue sub-area, and this is really this goal is really focused on maintaining the existing neighborhood-oriented commercial character of California Avenue. And the policies that support this goal recognize the importance of maintaining that existing character, also encouraging mixed-use development that supports the vitality of the California Avenue Business District while maintaining its character. And the type of mixed use envisioned would be ground floor retail that provides active uses on the ground floor with either office or residential above in order to take advantage of proximity to transit at that location. And again, the PTA design guidelines that are already in force would help to promote active uses at street level in this sub area. Additionally, there are policies which seek to improve parking and ease the demand for parking in this sub-area by promoting active transportation, so cycling and walking as opposed to driving, and also by implementing travel demand management strategies, so encouraging the use of employee shuttles and transit. There's also a program here, as Elena referred to, which proposes a design competition to generate innovative ideas for city-owned parking lots and structures. Additionally, there's a policy which encourages hotel and associated hospitality uses along El Camino, and there are some policies which encourage the better connectivity to California Avenue, especially for the county courthouse. The third goal pertains to the Park Boulevard sub-area, and it's intended really to nurture this this nascent hub of innovation and entrepreneurship that is already there. And so there is a policy to create a tech corridor overlay that would combine high design standards with appropriate incentives to encourage the type of workspaces for smaller firms that would continue to build on and strengthen this this tech corridor, which is growing there already. Additionally, there are policies that would favor mixed use and live work spaces above office space, and again, because a lot of this sub area is within the PTOD overlay, there are policies which would support activating street frontages. Also, there's a policy here to encourage remediation of historic contamination sites, formerly industrial. The second, or rather the fourth policy is another policy which also applies to Park Boulevard. And this one is really focused on ensuring that Park Boulevard in particular remains safe, easy, and comfortable for cyclists and pedestrians. As I mentioned, Park Boulevard has been designated in the Bicycle and Pedestrian Transportation Plan as a bike boulevard, and it is a very well used bicycle corridor. However, there have been some accidents, and there's certainly concerns in the community for safety along this corridor, and therefore we have a number of policies that are designed to address that community concern and improve safety for cyclists and pedestrians. And then the final policy, or rather goal, goal 5, pertains to the Fry's site sub area, and the idea here is that is to encourage over the long term the transformation of the site into walkable, human-scale, mixed-use neighborhood that's well integrated with its surroundings. And the policies here would really be aiming at encouraging context-sensitive redevelopment in the event that Fry's decides to relocate. A master plan would be required for the redevelopment of this important site, and the policies also recognize the importance of the site to meeting the city's housing requirement. Specifically, a policy calls out that the residential component of any mixed-use development on this site must be between 20 and 50%. Other policies that support this goal are aimed at improving connections with El Camino Real and also improving bicycle and pedestrian connectivity through the site and throughout the area. And that concludes my brief recap of the contents and the process, and I'd like to turn it over for comment and discussion.
So thank you very much. I think we just have one speaker card from the public. If there's anyone else from the public who'd like to submit a speaker card, we welcome your participation. And So I realize that the staff gave us the option of simply continuing this matter to a subsequent meeting so that we might have attendance from people who couldn't be here tonight. However, I think what I'd like to do is have two bites at the apple. And anybody who made the effort to come down here this evening should have the opportunity to speak. And also, since the staff report and the consultant's presentation are sort of fresh in our minds, if we have any comments that we should make this evening, then we'll just do that, and then we'll all have a second bite, presumably at the December 11th meeting. But Greg, would you like to introduce the first speaker from the public?
Sure. Herb Borak, followed by Fred Balin.
Good evening, Chair Michael and Commissioners. I've only read the first page of the plan this evening, and so I'd like to comment on the pedestrian transit-oriented development combining district regulations that were adopted, including some incentives for increased housing density and affordable housing, and that was adopted before court cases regarding the relationship between the state housing density bonus law and inclusionary zoning ordinances in places like Palo Alto, and also was enacted after Palo Alto started drafting an ordinance for implementing the state density bonus law, but before that ordinance has been adopted. And now it appears that after 6 years, we'll finally have a Palo Alto ordinance on the state housing density bonus law. I believe that law and the PTOD combining district need to be reconciled, and it's better to begin doing them when the council has an opportunity to review the city's implementation of the Government Code Section 65915. I haven't looked at the language of the current zoning code in some time, but as I recall, it assumed that something about inclusionary zoning that the courts say we can't do, and that it had some language about design standards that I don't know how they reconcile with the limits that the council may be placing on concessions and incentives by right for Government Code Section 65915, and they might need to be, in addition to updating the PTOD ordinance to conform with the court law, the court rulings, also to reconcile that with 65915 implementation, including having special regulations for the California Avenue District. That being said, there may have to be more changes as well going along with the adoption of the proposal before you this evening, since this will probably lag the council's consideration of their implementation on the state housing density bonus law. But you may want to have ordinances or amendments that further the California Avenue plan that would be changes to that regarding California Avenue compared to the rest of the city. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your comment on those issues. Perhaps since the Commission is not likely to entertain a motion to make a recommendation to Council regarding the California Avenue area concept plan until we have the subsequent meeting on December 11th, we can simply refer to staff and to the City Attorney any research into the issues raised by Mr. Borak, and you can get back to us if either the PTC or perhaps the Council with its Regional Housing Mandate Committee might find it appropriate to take up any such questions.
Okay, the next speaker is Fred Balin, followed by Mike Rieger. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I think the draft has potential. I'm comfortable with the 2 land use designation changes. the fries and the tech overlay, and I'm glad that nothing else has been changed. I'm okay with most of the bullets on pages bottom of 3 and the top of 4, and most of those on page 6, except where you go into discussions of vibrancy. The goals and policies look fairly good, except for one CACP 3-3 that says to allow maximum permitted FAR. I'm not sure what that means. There's no FAR designation in this document, and if you have zoning, you can go up to the maximum FAR. I do want to talk about the term vibrancy. It's like we have a deficit on California Avenue. California Avenue is very vibrant, but most important, it's comfortable and it's inviting. Back in the day, you could walk into Casa Isabel and find Steve Jobs in the back room, or down at Computerware where he was trying to figure I could do this store better. And more recently, you could walk into Palo Alto Seoul after Zuckerberg had decided he didn't want to go to Antonio's Nut House anymore, but you'd find him in the back room there. And of course, now since he's moved the campus to Menlo Park, he took the whole restaurant with him because they've opened their own outlet there. But the vibrancy is kind of like a Trojan horse to talk about density, and that's where the real issue is here. How do we come to grips with that term here? Palo Alto is a desirable place to live. It's a desirable place to work. Palo Alto has a historic need to kind of build commercial space. It's from the very beginning of the research park when it's all commercial and no housing up until today. Palo Alto is pressured by ABAG and RENA housing allocations based on jobs housing imbalances that then were shown to be false by the census data, and now the shift share approach, which brings us back to the same false analysis. It's being challenged by the left and the right in court. We may have a similar outcome than we have with high-speed rail, where it may be modified. We got to be careful. We've got the priority development area, which came up and is related to the RENA allocation, which kind of gives us incentives for money. We have a PTOD, which already gives us increased density in the zone by the intended zoning. We have the parking assessment district problem, where we have phantom parking spaces given to projects that are building within the current zoning. And we have the density bonus law, where, as you saw the other night, you can build 5 affordable units, or 10%. You can build 5 units in a mixed use, 2 are affordable, and you get the full concessions. You get the density bonus, 3 concessions, plus the parking by right concession, which is better than what you get with the TDM, from the planning director. We've got to be very careful. We've got to find balance here, and we've got to make sure that the area is preserved. And so there's plenty of room to kind of grow here in a proper way, and we've got to make sure that it doesn't get out of control. Thank you.
Michael Eager, followed by Bob Moss. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Michael Eager. I live on Park Boulevard, just outside this project area. There are some areas where I have some concerns. I've been to several of the outreach programs, the community comment evenings. I don't see a lot of changes from the first time I saw this several years ago. The areas where I'm concerned are traffic, parking. It's the same things that you've been hearing. We have a choke point getting onto Page Mill Road from Park Boulevard. In the mornings, in the afternoons, this is jammed up. Currently, the area in this Park Boulevard technology corridor is vacant, construction areas. When you build more, when the projects that are in plan are opened and we have people coming in, this is going to be a much worse choke point. This is not news. This is something that people have been talking about for years. I don't see it being addressed in the plan here. Access to Fry's remains a narrow street, also a choke point. Traffic planning for the California Avenue area, there were many suggestions made by the community. I'm not seeing them represented in this plan. I'll echo what Fred said. You can't create parking by giving out parking stickers. Community parking passes is playing whack-a-mole. You're going to move people from parking here, where they don't need a sticker today, to someplace else where they don't need a sticker. We need to address the issues that really exist. One of them is parking, one of them is traffic, and then the issues of density. If you're building large buildings like the projects here, we're going to have a lot more traffic, a lot more density. I'm not against building large buildings. I'm against having everybody on the freeway at the same, trying to get onto Page Mill Road the same moment. So take a look at the project plan, and I hope you will look into areas where this can be improved. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Mr. Eager, for your for your comments. A number of the things you said were items that I was curious about, and maybe I could just direct a question to staff at this point, and that is that in the comprehensive plan, there are a number of different elements. One of the elements in the comprehensive plan is the transportation element. I was looking through the draft for the transportation element update, not the past one, but the new one. And I actually found some policies and programs in the draft transportation element that are responsive to these questions of traffic and parking. I think that traffic and parking are clearly as important in the Cal Ave area as they are elsewhere in the city. But one of the questions that I have is to what extent should those issues be addressed in the concept area plan versus in the transportation element, and maybe just so we have a better understanding of how the comprehensive plan is structured and what the expectations might be. Is that something that you can elaborate?
Well, my response would be we should make sure to address them as best we can in both places, and to ensure that the concept plan and the transportation element are consistent in how they approach or address these issues. But we can probably bring back a fuller response when we have another session on this, because the speakers have made some valid points, and I think we should prepare a thoughtful response.
The last speaker is Bob Moss. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Michael and Commissioners. I got to think maybe I ought to give you a list of some of the potential bombshells that something like this can blow up. I think you probably are aware of some of them, but maybe we put them all together and you'll see that they interact a little differently. First, this is supposed to be a transit center, but VTA does not run a bus to the Caltrain station. The only bus that runs is the Stanford bus, and of course that's limited to where it goes to. So VTA has created a major problem, and unless we get them to solve it, the transit interface is going to be much less effective than it should be. Second, we're looking at 3 specific areas. You kind of subdivide it, and you're looking at the development you put in the different areas. And if you don't look at how the areas interact, you could have a situation where one of the areas gets developed very high density, very high intensity, and that consumes all of the parking and traffic and other public facilities that the other 2 areas could use but no longer can. It's not available. So when each area is being developed, you have to look at it in the context of the entire area. And sometimes you're going to have to scale down a project which on the face of it looks like it's fine, but when taken into context of the wider area, it could create problems. Then we all know about the problems of traffic, especially at El Camino and Page Mill. So what are we going to do about it? I don't see an answer. I haven't seen an answer in decades, and I don't see it getting any better. So how do we handle that? And then finally, there's a brief comment about the toxics problem. Well, the toxics problem isn't just along Park Boulevard. It's along most of that area. It's called an area called Coe. And it significantly impacts any development you're going to put in there, because most of the developments are going to want to put in an underground garage, which is going to get into the contaminated aquifer and the contaminated soil and create potential health hazards. So if somebody wants to build in that area, you should know where is the parking going to be, because the parking is inadequate right now. Maybe you don't allow anybody to build until one of the city parking lots has been expanded to a garage or something like that. But I think it's better to be overparked, to have more development after you have parking and after you solve the traffic problems, rather than try to fix it afterwards. Because otherwise, what you're going to find is the first guy in is going to consume all of the assets, and he may not have the best project for the entire area. So it's got to be looked at holistically. And it's not an easy problem. It's not something that you can just, look at really quick and say, oh, that's it. It's going to take a lot of work.
So thank you very much, Mr. Moss. Unless there's any other speaker cards, we will close the public hearing and then come back to the commission for any comments that commissioners may have. Who would like to begin? Commissioner Pinelli.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for offering to continue this matter to a future meeting, because I felt coming into this meeting, I felt very uncomfortable that we were going to be discussing this with a number of residents especially of Olive and Pepper area being at the J. Paul meeting. So thanks for that. I have a number of questions here. Can we go back to the presentation to, I think it's CA1. Here, look. I'm sorry. Go the other. Go forward. No, back to. There, right there. Perfect. I'm a little confused because when I was reading through the very thorough staff report, there's a section in the staff report on page 3, the first paragraph under public outreach and recent developments. It starts, a significant public outreach process was developed and implemented for the California Avenue Area Concept Plan, and then it goes on to talk about the process and stakeholder groups. And then it ends with the following sentence. The owners of several residential parcels along Olive Avenue, directly north of the Fry's Electronics property and south of 395 Page Mill Road, stated that higher density residential would be the highest and best use for those parcels. Then I see in this goal CACP1 specifically stress the importance of preserving the existing single-family residential character of the Olive Pepper enclave. Can you help me with that? It seems like there's a conflict there.
Thank you. So basically the intent of that section was just to kind of express that staff did receive a very wide variety of comments. We did certainly have support for greater density, and we've also had support for basically keeping everything as is. So that section of the staff report just reflects that we did receive a range of comments, and the ultimate recommendation was based on the consensus or the majority of comments that were received, as well as direction from both the commission and from council.
Okay, thank you. So you would say it would be fair to characterize it as those who wanted to increase the density of what's currently a single family residential area, those who wanted to increase the density were in the minority?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. That helps me. I think we've talked about the technology, the tech corridor before, but help me understand this. If we're trying to promote startups in that corridor, and currently what we have is the current development, which is the apartments above and R&D on the first floor, but most of the square footage is residential, isn't it, on that property? And then next door to that is the proposed police station, at least if J. Paul gets his way. And then next to that is a parking lot for 395 Page Mill. Where's the tech corridor? I mean, it seems like it's very, very interrupted, what we had envisioned as a tech corridor.
If those developments are approved, certainly that would potentially be, but we are talking about basically a general character of the area and would certainly give strength for future decisions. So if 395 Page Mill were to be discussed at a future, and if this is recognized by the council and the commission as the vision for this area, that certainly would lend itself to the discussion and help formulate the direction going forward. And certainly, we can't require redevelopment of areas. We only really provide guidance for areas that develop over time. And so this would be for the future vision for the area to really encourage smaller types of tech businesses.
Yeah, I'm sort of being obtuse about this because I'm trying to marry what's actually going on to what this vision document is. So forgive me. So as an alternative, for people to consider, I'd again like to reiterate that I think there's an opportunity to put a future police station in a better location. And I would propose that a combined public safety building and parking garage on one or multiple of the sites on Sherman between Park and Ash, I think you sort of kill two birds with one stone. We have the land already. Whatever the financing mechanism it is, whether it's from a developer or whether it's from a bond measure or whatever revenue source, I think we could do something like what we have here at City Hall over there, and preserve this concept of a tech corridor all the way through and not use it for alternative uses. All right. Back off my soapbox. Can you just help me with what the let's call it the enforceability of a concept plan is versus a specific or coordinated area plan? I mean, how fungible does a concept plan compared to a specific plan?
So the concept plan is intended to be incorporated into our comprehensive plan, which is a general plan, which would be land use and transportation policies. So these goals, policies, and programs are intended to establish the city's overall direction. And what happens after that is that we adopt then zoning to implement those policies. So they're intended to be general, and then we have zoning codes to implement that. So in terms of a specific plan, I know there's a lot of confusion about that. So a specific plan is a combination document of a general plan and a zoning code. It contains elements of both. The coordinated area plan, which is sort of Palo Alto's version, is a combination of both as well. And typically coordinated area plans and specific plans are intended to cover larger areas that are owned by several property owners, because then that gives the city more ability to coordinate development between different property owners. And so I think that is primary reason why staff is proposing a master plan for the Fry's area, because we do recognize that there is a definite need to make sure that we have a coordinated and well thought out plan for really one of the only large pieces of land that's available for redevelopment.
Okay, and so would it be fair to say that to Mr. Balin's question about the reference to increased density, yet he didn't see any density numbers in the document, it's because it's a concept plan and not a specific or coordinated area plan? We're not conflating both general plan ideas with zoning ordinance.
Correct. So basically the general plan, our comprehensive plan, does actually include FAR ranges, but the zoning code would provide the specifics of where on that range that would go. So in future efforts going forward after we adopt our comprehensive plan, then we can start that process to implement zoning in either format to put that forward.
And then my very last item, and it's, last week we talked a lot about Bicycle Boulevard, and a lot of us, I think, expressed concern about the amount of traffic in the Matadero-Margarita corridor and then that transition, that odd sort of transition across El Camino. I would like to pose that since we have the ability to do this now, whatever we do with Fry's, a master plan for around Fry's or even incorporated into this document. But I'd like to see us try to preserve the old rail throughway. So right now it goes behind Fry's, kind of up Acacia, and then it sort of recontinues on the other side of El Camino and then connects back up with the Ballpark trail. I'd like to see us try to preserve that. I'd like to see bicyclists have some routes through the city where they don't have to concern themselves with battling against cars, because we know who's going to win when it's bike against car. So that's just my final comment there. Thanks.
Mike, are you ready? Commissioner Alchek?
The last 10 days, I had an opportunity to attend two very informative real estate industry conferences. One was hosted by Marcus and Millichap in Redwood Shores, and the other was hosted by ULI in Mountain View. The first, I want to say maybe 400, 500 industry specialists came together. The panelists were incredible. Topics were wide-ranging, everything from the changing demographics and growth projections in the Bay Area, presented by our very own Steve Levy, the guy we know as the man behind the ABAG numbers, who lives like across the street. I wish he came to more of our meetings. To trends in the development of multifamily and commercial properties in each of the peninsula communities. It was really interesting. And one of the major takeaways for me was this notion that bedroom communities of the Bay Area, the notion that the bedroom communities of the Bay Area, Los Altos, Burlingames, San Carlos, et cetera, have evolved and are evolving. Let's take Los Altos for an example, a community where half a century ago, the main activity was horseback riding through apricot orchards. Does anybody, show of hands, anybody remember horseback riding through apricot orchards in Los Altos? It's not much of that right now. This is pre-Highway 280. One panel at the conference described the evolution as one from sleepy neighborhoods to mini urban hubs. An evolution that has been spurred on by the demand for greater community. And it's been furthered by individuals who are seeking to take advantage of mixed-use communal spaces where residents can mingle with other residents, engage with each other socially, and feel a part of a greater whole. I know our last mayor made community building a high priority, but if you ask an experienced architect or designer or city planner, they'll tell you that design and layout is the most important factor in determining the success a place or space will have in encouraging community. I believe Palo Alto, and I think our city staff has made the case, this is our fourth meeting, I've only been a part of I think 2 or 3, but I think they've made the case that we are sitting on an incredible opportunity to design a place that will encourage the sort of community that will help our city evolve in a better way. The chance to enhance density on the California Avenue area, to encourage the development of multifamily housing alongside retail, commercial, and other community center type spaces is extraordinary. Palo Alto will be well served if it promotes this kind of development in this transit-oriented space. We have to plan for a time when the last mile or last 3-mile problem doesn't exist anymore. A time when the rail service that we have will be invested in. Hopefully, high-speed rail will come, and hopefully we'll get on board. At least that's my perspective. And I think that the work our staff has done this far has been excellent. I think that the 2 tours that we had in the area proved to be incredibly informative. I think the expansion of the area is very prudent. It increases the opportunity for cohesion. Everything about this area screams opportunity from my perspective. I'd like to sort of end, because this has been a topic in our local newspapers so much lately, I'd like to end by saying that I'm aware and cognizant of the fact that the perspectives that I share here in these hearings often conflict with some of our most vocal and engaged residents. But I very fervently believe that our city's decision makers, our city council, are better served by a process by which they hear from diverse and studied perspectives. The notion of diversity of perspective is exactly why we're a commission of 7. We're missing a couple here, but that's why we're a commission of 7. It's why there's a city council of 9, etc., and so on. And I want us to appreciate that the issues that some of our very engaged residents are raising are taken into consideration. We appreciate the notion of traffic and the congestion that may result from enhancing the density in this area. At least I've taken it into consideration. I'm still promoting or encouraging or suggesting that our city council move forward with this concept plan. I would support a motion tonight. I think we need to start this process. It's not as if this plan will be executed without 10 more meetings probably on the council level. But it is exactly this opportunity that we're sitting on, this opportunity for our city to evolve, for us to create the opportunities to build community, and for our residents to get closer to each other, which I know is scary. But if you were to hear Steve Levy talk about the changing demographics, it will blow your mind how different this community will look like in 20 years. It will be a lot grayer. He said at one point that your 25 to 50 will shrink. I'm in a minority, and we'll be shrinking. And the 55 plus, 65 plus, 75 plus is going to explode. Barron Park will feel like Palm Springs. That's how far away it will feel. Steve Levy described his current living situation as being ideal. He sold his home and moved into a 27-unit building here in downtown. He walks to almost all of his to get to almost all of his services. It was exciting to sort of hear him talk about it and embrace it. I wondered if he would ever attend some of our meetings to sort of espouse that perspective, not as a representative of the man behind ABAG, but about this notion. I encouraged him to come to the December 2nd meeting. But anyways, I think you've only been here for a little while, but the work's awesome, and the tours were excellent, and I think that they've got a good foundation here to sort of build on, and I really hope that we don't fight change because it's coming, and I think we need to design it. We need to be deciding exactly how this place will look in the future, and we really need to be specific. And I hope that whether it's at this meeting or the next one, that we really do push this up to the City Council.
Commissioner Martinez.
Thank you. Question for staff. Say this concept plan is adopted as is or with changes. How, as a commission, are we supposed to use it?
So basically what this does is it once it is adopted, it expresses the policy direction. And certainly, although it won't be fully actually adopted until the entire comprehensive plan is adopted, it does represent the city's policy, which can be used to inform future decisions as additional development comes before you.
I see. But it seems to me that we are saying a couple different things here. One, in the slide that's up here, provide a framework for managing change. But throughout the document, it talks about preserving the character of each sub-area. Seems to me that's been our greatest challenge, at least as long as I've been here. How do we reconcile that? Because it seems to me if we're looking at some of these high-density developments. If we're looking at high-density housing on the Fry site, if we're looking at developing a tech corridor, how do we preserve the character of these sub-areas in those contexts? We get these platitudes, and then we're kind of stuck trying to balance it, and nobody's happy. How are we supposed to do that?
Do you like a specific example, or I'll give you a hypothetical, couple hypothetical specific examples. If I were sitting down with a developer that was coming in for an application and he wanted to, let's say, maximize a parcel, and we have a policy that says manage change but maintain the overall character of the neighborhood. If you had a larger mixed-use building that backed up to a residential area, if I read that, I would probably tell the developer, on your upper stories, tier those in away from the residential neighborhood, because although we do want to see some change in these areas, we still don't want to have the light and air impacts that make this neighborhood desirable. Another example, residential permit parking. Now, if you have increased developments and you have a bunch of free parking within a residential neighborhood, you could potentially drive additional commercial traffic that parks in that neighborhood and drives through that neighborhood. Well, obviously that would have an impact on the character of that neighborhood. But if you adopt something like a residential permit parking program, that's one small policy where you could have some type of growth, but at least you're not impacting that neighborhood disproportionately through increased traffic or increased parking within there.
Wouldn't it be better to really kind of bring it down and say we encourage medium density housing rather than high density housing? Because essentially that's what we're getting. We're not getting 10-story towers like San Jose is doing. We're getting kind of housing on the high density for Palo Alto, granted, but really medium density. Really put language that really tries to acknowledge that we are trying to respect the character of these sub-areas of Cal Avenue. I think most of us feel Cal Avenue is very charming the way it is, but we see new development going in right now, a fairly large project. If you follow sort of what's being sold in the real estate market, several properties have changed hands at a very high price, and we know that they're not going to remain as a little paint store or something for very much longer. Wouldn't it, if we're really serious, and I think we are, and we're not just putting that in to placate the neighborhood, that we should really set some real goals to this. I know we in the planning community like to keep things open and kind of fluid and say, well, yeah, you can do this high density project, but step it back or do stuff, but you're still going to pour cars into the street, and you're still going to have some effect on what's around you. So it seems to me if it's a real concept plan, I'm sorry, I won't go there because I don't know what a real concept plan is, but if we're really going to make something that's useful for us, that we should really try to bring these two conflicting elements together in some manner. The other thing about it that sort of troubles me is that this sounds like a lot of like the comp plan. And if it's going to sound like the comp plan, just create new land use policies and put that to the comp plan. If it's going to be something different that the comp plan refers to or incorporates, let's make it different. I don't really see anything in the language. The language very general. Let's put some constraints in there about parking and traffic and our goals for the city, and let's try to provide something that I want to say useful, but just helpful to the commission and the council as we go forward with the many projects that we're going to be seeing over the next 5 years that are developing in this area. And I really appreciate Commissioner Alchek's eloquence, but I'd like to say in 20 years he's going to be part of that 55-year-old community, so welcome to the club. Thank you.
Vice Chair Tanaka.
Yeah, so in general, I support this plan. We've looked at it quite a bit, and I think staff and the community, the commission itself as well, has put a lot of time on this. And I personally believe that this CalApp area probably represents one of the biggest opportunities for Palo Alto. And so I'm glad to see that this is progressed to where it's at, and that that it's likely to move forward. So I think just to respond to some of my fellow commissioners' comments, I like the idea that Commissioner Pinelli mentioned about perhaps a parking garage. Although I think we'll certainly have to get feedback from the developer in terms of having a combined parking garage and police building. It's quite a shift from what's currently being contemplated. The one area that I've just been thinking about, and by the way, I support what Commissioner Pelly proposed, mainly because I do kind of see what he's saying about the tech corridor, although we already have that mainly residential project, the Hobach project, already kind of going forward, so that is an interruption already. But the one thing I've been thinking about is the residential area. So it's actually on this slide here on the goal 1 about neighborhood preservation. I think Commissioner Martinez says it well in terms of the balance between the two, the preservation plus moving it forward. And I think if most people looked at this map today and looked at the Pepper Olive area, I think you would, if nothing was there today, you would probably not zone it single family. And that's the truth, right? It's kind of middle of industrial. It's on a busy street. It's near a power plant or a sub plant. And so the question is this really, so on this slide here, and what it says in the concept plan, it says we want to preserve this. And I guess it made me wonder, is this really what is the best use of this area, is to be that? At one point I saw a ownership map. I haven't seen it recently, but I've seen an ownership map. And while a lot of this is zoned single family, like in yellow on page 7, I guess, a lot of this property is being purchased by a lot of the neighboring commercial properties. So how long this is single family and how much we want to preserve it to be single family, I think is very questionable. I saw at one point, I forgot, who are the people that own Fryside again? It was
Sobrato.
Sobrato has purchased quite a bit of it, I think. So and a lot of these single family homes are actually rental. And I think, before we codify this, I think that's something we should think about really is, that the bullet of specific stress importance of preserving the existing single family residential character of the Olive Pepper Enclave is something we have to really think, what are we preserving? And is it already changing? I personally know there's also quite a few startups that rent out these houses. So is it really being used for single family purposes or not? I think that's highly questionable as well. So this is not the typical single family neighborhood. And I think it's something that we should think about if this is what's going to eventually translate into zoning codes, because I don't know if that's really what this place is already today. It's not a barren park. It's not a college terrace. It's not most of what you think of as a typical Palo Alto neighborhood. And so I think that's something that should be looked at, and the ownership map should be looked at. The rental should be looked at, and what percentage of these are rentals, what percentage of these actually are single-family homes where people actually are living in them, versus being used as cheap rent for cheap space for startups. Let's see. Yeah, and I think I kind of like what Commissioner Alchuk said about how, I guess once upon a time these places were apricot farms, and now trying to transition from sleepy bedroom community to mini urban hubs. And we have to think about where do we want these mini urban hubs? Do we want them near rail, fixed rail, and expressway, or they certainly didn't belong, let's say, in a Barron Park type of neighborhood. But here it might make sense. So I think that's something for us to think about: is where do we want density? Where does density make sense, and where does density not make sense? Because in some areas, like middle of Barron Park, probably doesn't make a lot of sense. But here, maybe it does. So I think that's something. That's probably one point that I think we should explore and discuss as a commission. Thanks.
Commissioner Martinez has a rebuttal.
What Commissioner Tanaka just said about the Olive Avenue residences, I think you could say for all of Palo Alto. If you drive up and down University Avenue with all the traffic that's right there, it's not a great place for houses, but they're there. If we were to build downtown again, we would put it closer to 101 so we wouldn't be so landlocked in terms of our traffic. But what is, and it's a neighborhood that is of single-family houses. The city has a policy of preserving our R1 neighborhoods. And if Commissioner Tanaka wants to turn in the names of the startups on Olive, I'm sure our planning director will go after them. So, thank you.
Commissioner Alchek has some comments.
So I just want to kind of be even extra clear. I don't think that Commissioner Tanaka or myself are suggesting a Santana Row development here. I think what we're suggesting is that we encourage something more organic, more authentic. Santana Row is an island. California Avenue is an epicenter. The sooner we start to appreciate that it is an epicenter, the sooner we appreciate that its proximity to rail service is a goal. When people say real estate is about three things: location, 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 this is the sort of location they're talking about. I don't know Brooklyn well enough, but I read a lot of The New Yorker, and they're always referring to parts of Brooklyn as being so charming. I'm pretty sure there aren't too many single-family homes in Brooklyn. I don't think we lose charm and neighborhood and community just because our entries are closer to each other. And I really want to encourage us to think about a high density, medium density, as not necessarily a negative thing, because there are a lot of communities in the peninsula that are very low density, where neighbors don't even know their neighbors. That doesn't seem ideal. It doesn't seem ideal to me for our, and to be perfectly clear, in 20 years I still won't be in the 55 plus category. I won't even be in the 55 box. So, it might shock you how young I am. But what I'm trying to say is, I doubt that any of our residents who will be in the 55, 65, 75 plus want to be on a street where they don't know their neighbors. And I don't think that we should just be blindly supporting the notion that just because the door to my house is 25 feet from the door to your house means that it's sort of an awful place to live. Again, don't picture Santana Row. That's not authentic. That's not organic. That's an island. This is an epicenter. This is more central to Palo Alto than downtown is. When we had this conversation last time, that we had the extraordinary idea to move this building to that area. Commissioner Pinelli promoted that idea. Why? Because it's an epicenter, because it's more central to all the residents. I think Palo Alto has to look at this space, not just for the residents on Olive, not just for the existing retail, businesses on Cal Avenue. They have to look at California Avenue on behalf of all residents of Palo Alto, on behalf of future residents of Palo Alto. It's so much bigger than that.
So when I interviewed or applied for a position on the Planning Commission and interviewed with the council, had an interesting discussion, and the last question I was asked was if I knew of any big, interesting planning opportunities in the city, what was I interested in? And I didn't know much about planning, and I'm still learning, but I sort of blurted out, mixed use on California Avenue. and Council Member Burt said, just wait until you get on the PTC, and the PTC reviews the California Avenue Area Concept Plan. Then you can get into it. And I've been waiting for 2 years, so this is my chance. And I decided to do something a little bit different this evening, and I'm very impressed when we have members of the community come, and we only give them 3 minutes, so they prepare very carefully for their 3 minutes, and they're very well organized and articulate. And oftentimes on the commission, we're more spontaneous and ad lib and not nearly as articulate, so I tried to do some preparation. In support of comments from my colleagues and agreeing with much of what's been said, I'm concerned with how our community plans to deal with the inevitability of certain changes that are in process. And focusing on the PTC's responsibilities concerning the comprehensive plan, which is an important tool the city has to manage the long-term planning and decisions to shape our future, I think it's relevant to talk about the California Avenue plan in the context of the overall comprehensive plan. So it was 7 years ago in 2006 that the council started the effort to update and amend the 1998 comp plan. When the work started, it was hoped that only minor updates would be called for. The anticipated small adjustments were not made promptly, but the world around us continued to march forward. Several years ago, led in large part by the resurgence of Silicon Valley, the local and state economy bounced back from the Great Recession of 2008-2009. The city grappled with a monumental backlog of unfunded infrastructure projects, and I served on the IBRC, which submitted a report on possible solutions and funding for those infrastructure projects, which the city is still grappling with. Home values in Palo Alto have since skyrocketed. The pipeline is filled up for development projects for commercial and mixed-use buildings. And really appreciate the work that the staff has done on the comprehensive plan, along with numerous subcommittees of the PTC and the whole commission. But work continued on drafting amendments to the comp plan, which is shortly to go to the council. Meanwhile, the council extended the horizon date for this next comp plan to 2025. From 1998 to 2025 is a long time. A lot happens in 27 years, particularly in Palo Alto, where we identify strongly with innovation, and our community includes talented residents actively involved in creating the future. Around here, a lot happens in 7 years. Just in this period, a little startup called Facebook set up offices in the California Avenue district, grew up, and moved away to neighboring Menlo Park. Not far from Cal Ave are the headquarters of newer companies, including Tesla, Groupon, etc., changing the world in different ways. Not to mention a host of other companies and professional firms in the nearby Stanford Research Park. So for this, we need a plan. The first goal in the draft for the California Avenue Area Concept Plan begins with, and many people have commented on this, quote, provide a framework for managing change, and then goes on to say, while preserving the existing character. So it's easy to note the tensions between change and preservation. While not impossible to reconcile, and Assistant Director Ackman gave us a good example of one such approach, these concepts will often clash. This underscores the importance of a comprehensive plan in mediating multiple objectives in the context of shared values. So, way back in 1998, there was a focus on balancing competing visions. I went back and read the introduction to Palo Alto's 1998 to 2010 Comprehensive Plan, which reads in part, and this is on basically the first page, the Palo Alto Comprehensive Plan strives to build a coherent vision of the city's future from the visions of a diverse population. It integrates aspirations of the city's residents, businesses, neighborhoods, and officials into a bold strategy for managing change. The comprehensive plan is the primary tool for guiding the future development of the city. On a daily basis, the city is faced with tough choices about growth, housing, transportation, neighborhood improvement, and service delivery. A comprehensive plan provides a guide for making these choices by describing long-term goals for the city's future, as well as policies to guide day-to-day decisions. So there were, I think, 4 key points in that, which I think are quite valid. The first is vision of the future. And if I can just digress a moment, I once in a meeting where the CEO of my company invited Steve Jobs to attend, and he challenged the 100 or so top managers in this company to state what the vision, in this case was the mission of the company was. And hand went up and somebody said, our mission is da-da-da. And Steve Jobs asked a few questions and totally destroyed the credibility of the person who thought they knew what the vision was. Another hand went up, same thing happened. And Steve Jobs knew exactly what his mission was, and he was then doing Next, that company, and his mission was bulletproof. And I think Palo Alto doesn't have that sort of really solid, grounded, committed sense of vision that would withstand a conversation with Steve Jobs. So let me talk about the vision, problem with respect to the California Avenue District with its several sub-areas. As pointed out by Elena in her presentation and report, is affected by at least 7 separate planning initiatives, which are set forth in pages 1 through 4 of the draft. The Area Concept Plan seeks to incorporate such regulations, policies, and guidelines. In so doing, there isn't so much a vision for the future of California Avenue as a pragmatic recognition of the significance and complexity of the overall planning. There's just a lot of moving parts. The staff report summarized issues and opportunities which were identified by the outreach to the community in workshops from 2009 to 2012. And you listened and you heard strong support to retain the existing neighborhood-serving small-town feel of California Avenue while allowing more mixed-use and transit-oriented development. But I worry that an emphasis on maintaining the status quo may fail to inform policies about decisions that will be important to the future. For example, there are 6 pending project applications listed on page 9 of the draft plan. What decisions should the City Council make when it comes time to move ahead with, modify, or even stop any of these projects? Does the concept area plan help us decide? And while the transportation element of the comprehensive plan is the logical place to deal with 2 of the most difficult and persistent challenges facing the city, traffic and parking, to what extent or how should the California Avenue area concept plan help illuminate the planning choices that may be relevant to traffic congestion at the intersection of El Camino Real and Page Mill, or how to address parking solutions in the California Avenue district? I note that regarding traffic congestion and gridlock policy, T2.9 in the draft transportation element calls for the city to, quote, prohibit development that causes level of service E for a particular intersection, and then it goes on, unless there are sort of compelling or overriding factors. So how will proposed development in the California Avenue area affect the level of service at El Camino and Page Mill, which is already, I believe, at level F? Are there compelling or overriding factors, or should development stop? Regarding parking, see program CACP 2.21 on page 14, that calls for a design competition to generate innovative concepts for the use of city-owned parking lots and structures. And in the current draft of the new transportation element, policy 4.1 talks about, quote, provide sufficient motor vehicle and bicycle parking in the downtown and California Avenue Business District to support vibrant economic activity. I worry that are we clear enough on what to expect? See also the numerous references in the concept area plan for California Avenue regarding transportation, demand management, transit-oriented development, pedestrian, bicycle connections, etc. Policies related to streetscape improvements and traffic calming, along with El Camino Real design guidelines and Grand Boulevard ideas, all come into play. And I'm not sure that any of this gives me the chance to pass the Steve Jobs test. I can't state what the vision is for this district. The next point from the 1998 kind of sort of mandate is for the comp plan to articulate a strategy for managing change. And Council is now moving with some urgency to conduct a discussion about managing change in the city, as evidenced by the agenda for Council meetings on December 2nd and December 9th in the next few weeks. The Council will also be having discussions about planned community districts and the process for reviewing PC zoning applications. But focusing on our responsibility at the PTC includes making recommendations to Council on the city's comprehensive plan, recommendations about zoning, land use, development, and review of individual projects. Since the comp plan is intended to set forth the city strategy for managing change, it's important that the PTC serve as a resource for and collaborate with Council and the city staff on our review of these pending amendments to the comprehensive plan. And we look forward to this work, but again, the concept area plan and the comp plan should help us do our job and serve the community. The third item is setting long-term goals, and the California Avenue concept plan has 5 goals, which at a high level are: first, to provide a framework for managing change while preserving existing character. Second, support the California Avenue subarea as a transit-rich neighborhood shopping district. Third, to promote Park Boulevard subarea as a home for small companies. And fourth, to ensure the safety for pedestrians and cyclists. And 5, foster the transformation of the Fry's subarea into a mixed-use neighborhood. But I wonder, are there any important goals that were left out that might be added? Are we missing any big opportunities or overlooking challenges? This has got to last us to 2025. And I just had a few items to question or suggest. I don't know from this what should be the optimal balance of residential, commercial, and office. I don't know what development should be encouraged in El Camino Real. I don't know enough about the conditions for a residential parking permit program in nearby neighborhoods. There's many opportunities for what might be done with the city-owned surface parking lots. If one became a parking structure, could another surface lot convert to a park or a plaza or a public safety building, as suggested by Commissioner Pinelli? What is the full potential of a neighborhood with a Caltrain station and transit modalities in El Camino? Bob Moss noted that VTA doesn't necessarily serve this in the same way that the multimodal hub at university is served, and that could be optimized and set forth in the plan or in maybe the transportation element. If it were feasible to put the train tracks below grade, this would be transformational. How would the east-west grade level connections and new landscaping affect the California Avenue neighborhood? That would be pretty exciting. Might it be possible or desirable to relocate City Hall from downtown to Cal Ave? If you're going to locate the public safety building, why not think big? Think of what you could do with this block. And I mean, what should we realistically expect from Caltrain and high-speed rail, in the foreseeable future? But finally, it was important, it was noted that the concept area plan and the comp plan generally provides policies to guide day-to-day decisions. And there are over 30 proposed new policies in the concept plan which are generally well thought out, and I hope the council approves them when they do the review. These are too many for us to review this evening. But the policies in the comp plan are used by the city staff each year as the city departments create their annual budgets, plans, and programs. This is a good set of policies. So I just ask, before this is set in stone and finalized, is there anything important that might have been left out? But I think I was going to end by saying that tonight the PTC should recommend the California Avenue Concept Plan should be included in the draft comprehensive plan update. As a courtesy to the community, we're going to defer that until our very next meeting, and I think we should put this forward to the council as soon as possible. But when we do that, to me it's important that as a commission we should strive to manage the change that we want, honor the values that we have, fund the infrastructure that we need, and preserve the neighborhood character that should endure. Those are my prepared remarks. Is there interest in a brief second round? Commissioner Pinelli.
First, I have to say that I'm so blessed. Well, I'm not sure if it's a blessing or a curse to be surrounded by so many commissioners who are skilled in rhetoric and so eloquent. So I tend to be I think a blunt stick. So one of the things that struck me through the chair's deep comments was that how much of this plan is actually measurable. And I know, sometimes we all fall in the trap of trying to make the analogy by what we do in sort of private business and bring it into public local government. And in private business, generally when we establish a plan, we try to say, well, here's the goal, and we don't, we will state them qualitatively, but oftentimes we'll try to quantify, because a plan suggests implementation, and plans need to have measurable goals. And I'm wondering how much of what was presented tonight could be quantified and measured. For example, and the chair mentioned two of the biggest problems, which are traffic and parking. I actually think those are very measurable, and through the efforts of folks like Nielsen Buchanan and how that his sort of approach is spreading into other neighborhoods. I think we can do things, include in this plan, we can say things like, we are going to eliminate the current parking deficit, put a number to it, and ensure that we don't create a new parking deficit going forward as part of this development plan. That would be one way, one measurable goal or subset of the goals that are presented. Another one could be something around traffic. We are going to reduce or eliminate or reduce by 90% the cut-through traffic on Olive and Pepper. I'd like to see these kinds of goals included as part of the plan as much as possible. Because if we don't all have the measuring stick, we won't have a common understanding of what success or failure is. And some people say, well, we succeeded, and some people will say we failed. I think we need to sort of coalesce around some measurable goals. Thanks.
Commissioner Martinez.
Are we ready for a motion? I was going to suggest that we continue this item until our next meeting, but I think Commissioner Pinelli has underscored what I first mentioned in terms of really giving us something that's more helpful, and also really underscored by the chair's comments. So I would make a motion to continue this to a date uncertain to allow staff sufficient time to come back and at least provide a response to what commissioners have asked for tonight. whether you want to change the complexion or of the plan or not, or whether you want to stand by the hard work that you've done to this point. We'll leave that to you, but I think I would prefer that we give you sufficient time to at least be able to respond to these comments. So my motion is to continue this to a date uncertain.
Is there a second?
I'd like to just suggest that
Commissioner Alchek.
that the community might want to participate in this round. And so if the objective here is to give community members an opportunity to speak up on where we are at right now, because what you're suggesting is they go back based on really just our comments. They might come back and the community might have input that wasn't heard this round, and then they have to go back again. So maybe it would be wise for us to...
Are you making a substitute motion?
I'm making a substitute motion. Maybe it would be wise for us to have them come back at our next meeting, get the community's input, we can sit tight, and then they can incorporate that and our input for a potentially third follow-up or second follow-up at a later date to be uncertain. I just don't want us to go through this too many times.
Okay, so we have a substitute motion. Is there a second for the substitute motion?
I'll second it.
Or maybe we should make it a friendly amendment to the first motion. Maybe Commissioner Alchek, why don't you speak to your motion now, if you have anything further to say.
I do not have anything further to say.
Commissioner Martinez?
I think that's fine. I think giving the community the opportunity to speak at our next meeting on this item, I don't know if that's sufficient time for staff to consider what we've offered tonight, but we certainly would have the opportunity to continue again if that works. I would like to hear from staff if that impacts where you're going in terms of council presentation and approval of this.
If I understand, I think the current motion is in line with what we can respond to. I mean, I don't think we'll be able to prepare responses to all of the big ideas that you've shared with us tonight, but I do think it would be good to move forward at your next meeting to hear more from the community. Once we have the benefit of those comments and those suggestions and questions you've offered tonight, then we'll be in a position to determine how long it'll take and what the process will be for coming back to you. I mean, we're running up against just resource issues in addition to, obviously wanting to be responsive. But we've put a lot of time and energy into this. Consultant has put time and energy into it. So I just want to be efficient. So why don't we I guess I'm saying that we would be supportive of the current motion, coming back to you without making any more changes to the document or without spending a lot of time responding to your comments this evening. Let's get some more comments and then we'll respond once to all of the issues that are relevant.
To me, that sounds like a good idea. I don't want us to be accused of slowing down the process on the concept plan. You've only been working on this since 2008, so giving us a few more weeks, I think, would be fine, and I support the substitute motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to continue this matter to the meeting on Wednesday, December 11th. All in favor, say aye. So it passes unanimously. Thank you very much. With Commissioners Keller and King absent. So our next item is approval of the minutes that were distributed electronically. And what was the date of the meeting for which we have the minutes? Does anybody? What's the date of the meeting for which we're approving the minutes? Okay, I'd like a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting,
November 6th.
November 6th. So moved. Is there a second?
I'm sorry, the 13th. 13th.
November 13th. Stand corrected. So motion by Commissioner Martinez, seconded by Commissioner Alchek. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? So that was unanimous with Commissioners Keller and King absent. Next item is the director's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be succinct. As you probably are aware, the Council on Monday approved by a 7-2 vote the project at 3159 El Camino, a mixed-use project with some small residential units. So that project moved forward. The council also decided how to use the financial penalty that came to the city or is coming to the city as a result of the Edgewood Plaza situation, and they decided to put that towards historic rehabilitation of the Lucy Stern Center building? Community Center. Thank you. Upcoming on the council's agenda, I think as has been mentioned several times this evening, on December 2nd, the council's having a discussion that was originally framed as, the future of the city. We are working as staff to try and it's going to be difficult to have a discussion about such a big topic. So we're trying to craft a staff report to help the study session be constructive. And I would encourage those of you who are interested in weighty topics, as you've all evidenced this evening, to participate or to attend and hear what transpires on the 2nd. There's going to be then a second study session on December 9th related to the workout from the Maybell decision, Measure D. Council's requested kind of a report back, options about the financial contribution that the city made to the project, what happens with that agreement, and also what implications, if any, there are for our current housing element. So that'll be on December 9th. Also on December 9th is a discussion of transportation demand management, some presentations from people who manage transportation demand management programs, and a discussion of what we at the city are already doing that kind of fits into that category, and then we'll come back in January with some next steps on that program. And then finally, the last council meeting of the year, December 16th, we're scheduled to discuss residential permit parking and a framework for that program moving forward. So we have a lot of work coming at us in a very short amount of time between now and the end of the year, but I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Just one question that I had, Director Gittleman. Can you give us some idea of your process in terms of developing the work plan for the department for 2014? I believe you mentioned this is something that you're working with your staff and the city manager. The reason I'm asking is I know that the commission is interested in having a retreat and taking up our own planning for what we might do in 2014, and we wanted to do that after you've been able to finalize your work plan so that we could be supportive.
Sure. Let me share with the whole commission my thoughts on that. The city managers requested that I put together a work plan for the department, and I think that's just such a valuable tool to be able to explain how we're going to use our resources in the coming year, both on things that we need to do internal to the department and the work that is directed towards us by applications walking in the door, by the council, by the commission. And so we've scheduled a staff meeting close to the end of the year, just a half day with staff to talk about some of the internal things and some of our own goals for the coming year. And then I owe the city manager some kind of proposal or proposed work plan shortly after the first of the year. And my thought was I could bring a draft to the commission in January for your input. And it would be finalized sometime thereafter. That's just a concept, but I think if you wanted to calendar retreat or a discussion of your own interests for the year, maybe some professional development related to the commission's activities and practices, I would say let's maybe put it off in February or March so we have an opportunity to really see what's coming at us in 2014 before we do that.
So that's very helpful. Thank you very much. Let's next go to, are there any other questions for Director Gittleman? Okay, next go to commission updates, reports, or comments, starting with Commissioner Pinelli.
Yeah, I'm going to fulfill my duty here as a council liaison. I'd like to add a little bit of color to what the director said about Monday's meeting. It was actually a very interesting meeting. The deliberation over 3159 El Camino was very similar to the deliberation that we went through regarding things like clarification of what we had discretion over versus what we did not have discretion over, which turned out to be not much discretion given the state mandated exceptions, and a discussion about the 50 versus 55-foot height in the mechanical screen and integrating that into the design and whether that's really a design enhancement or not. I was really struck by Councilman Klein's line of questioning. It was the way he framed it was really interesting because and then he sort of summed it up at the end. He said that many of the people he saw in the audience opposed to 3159 El Camino were also opposed to the Maybell project specifically and PCs in general. And he said, let me be clear, this is not a PC. This is actually sticking to the zoning. So he said, you know, in this particular case, this is one of those where we don't have a lot of leeway, and what we're faced with is approving a project that's better than the kind of project they could do by right just by walking in the door and building a 50-foot monolith. It was, I just thought I'd share that with the rest of you because I thought it was a really interesting point that he made. Again, traffic and parking were the absolute top concerns by the community. That's, you know, there was sort of this idea of just blunt general opposition, and then traffic parking, each person who came up. And I know the chair was there at the meeting. I saw him there as well. And if you have anything to add to that.
So I have a report just on attending the meeting of the Regional Housing Mandate Commission, which had on this agenda the density bonus ordinance, and was a very careful review of the proposed ordinance and numerous questions and comments and suggestions for minor revisions to the draft language, which will then go to council. So this, as Director Gittleman was there and explained to the committee, is an effort by the city to comply with the state density bonus ordinance in a way that preserves our flexibility where there is latitude for us to have any choices. So I think that basically concludes the announcements, except for one internal process in the commission. I wanted to just make a request to Secretary Elner, which I'll do directly, that we circulate a schedule for commissioners in their attendance at the pre-commission meetings. And I'm just going to arbitrarily put something out. We have chair, vice chair, and then 5 other commissioners. So over a 5-month period, I'd like each commissioner to have the opportunity to serve as the pre-commission participant for that month with an alternate. So if for any reason either that commissioner or the chair or the vice chair can't attend the meeting, that the alternate might be able to participate, and then we would get a better process with more ability to plan for that. And when Secretary Elner sort of circulates the proposed calendar, if you'd like to make any adjustments, please let her know or let me know, and we'll work it out. Commissioner Martinez.
It's in that regard, it's important for us as commissioners when we know we're not going to be available to give Secretary Elner as much advance warning, because if we would have had 3 commissioners at a pre-commission meeting for this, we would have had a quorum. So very important that we know, so we work within Brown Act rules, and if only 2, when I was chair, I invited 3 and we had to send somebody home. I think it was Commissioner Alchek every time. And that's really not fair. So really important for us to let her know when we're not going to be there.
I think that concludes our business for this evening. Thank you very much. See you all on the 11th of December.